Okay, I don't know if we should wait for the rest of the guys.
Okay, that's fine. I'm on transit here, so probably I might not be, unmuting myself for a while till I get home. Yeah.
Let me see if someone else will join. If not, it's going to just be a lonely class. Yeah, I'm not sure anybody's joining again, so I'll just start. So in this class, we're going to be learning how to create REST APIs with Django REST framework. So Django REST framework is a library that helps us to build flexible web APIs. So it has some very good features. Number one, it has a web browsable API. It has authentication policies, supports authentication policies. It supports serialization for both ORM and non-ORM sources. It's customizable and it is used by popular companies. So for you to use Django REST framework, you need to have the following Python versions: 3.5, 3.6, down to 3.9. So it requires all of either of those. And then, okay. And then your Django, the version of the Django has to be like starts from 2.2. So this is going to be like a very simple class. So the first thing we need to do is, as usual, activate our virtual environment, which I've done already. And then we'll go inside of our project folder. Let me make sure our project is still running fine. Okay. I'll do some tests to make sure that what's this one? Okay. So yeah, this is working fine. Okay. I think we'll look at that. Look inside. Okay. So first thing we need to do is to install Django REST framework. So you just install Django REST framework. Did I install it already? Okay, since I've installed it already, so search requirement already satisfied. And then after that, we'll go inside of our settings file, and inside of installed apps, we are going to add REST framework to the installed app. Okay. So that's done. And then in order to like get started with this with creating these APIs, we need to provide a way for our post objects to be serialized. So what we need to do is we need to create a serializers file. If you're going to be having more than one serializers, you can create a serializers directory and serializers.py. You can create a serializers directory and then put in all of the serializers there. Make sure to have an init file so that you can reference that serializer with a dot notation. Okay, so first we are going to create serializers. So what we need to do is to import serializers from REST framework first. REST framework import serializers. And then we're going to import our model. Post. Now we're going to create our post serializer. So the serializer, I told you what serializers do. Serializers are going to help you to transform the objects, your Python objects that are gotten from the query set, or just Python objects into a format that can be sent to your client. So like in JSON format or XML or any other format that you want. So we're going to be using REST framework serializers. Okay, so let's create our serializer. We're going to just call it post serializer, and it's going to inherit from the serializer class. So what we will do is we will now state which attributes we want our serializers to have. So we want our serializers to serialize basically. So from our models.py, we have author, title, content, category, created date, published date. So we're going to add all that. So let's start with, also our posts have an ID. So when you are like converting from Python objects to JSON, we want our ID to show. So first we'll start with our ID. Serializers dot integer field. By the way, serializers are just like Django forms. They're very similar to Django forms. So you can use them just the same way you use Django forms. So we do not want to write to our ID. So we're going to give it read only equal true. Then the next is author. We're going to use serializers dot character field. And we'll just give it the same max length of our author here. Max length of 30. Then title, okay, desktop. Title, field, same. Okay, great, 50. Then content. Okay. Created dates. Use the time field for this. And then we'll have published date. Same daytime field. So we're going to say required is equal to false because sometimes we do not have data for our published date. I'm just going to put same here because it's like this. Okay, I'll add it because of other operations like updates. Let me make it blank culture. So because of other operations like updating and the rest, I'll just add blank culture. Okay. You see why this is necessary later. Okay. So we have this. So usually we serializers usually have defaults default methods like create and update for creating objects and then updating them. So we're going to create this create this create method. It takes in validated data. So if all of the data that is being sent to this serializer is valid, it will return validated data. So we're just going to do we've imported post. So we'll just say should return post the object that create. And then we'll pass in all of our validated data. Like this. Okay. Then we'll create the update. So updates will take in, object is going to take in the instance of that object, like the instance you want to update, and then the validated data. So just like this. So we're just going to say, okay, let me say instance dot author is equal to get all of those data from our instance. So instance that gets author I'm going to copy and paste this again and again, then edit it. Title instance dot also author instance dot title instance dot content That's content. Then created dates. And then publish dates. Okay, just like that. And then afterwards, we're going to save the instance. We'll return that instance. Okay, so you would return the updated instance after updating it, just like this. So let's look at the serializer again. All of these class attributes you are seeing here, they are going to define the fields that will be serialized or deserialized. So deserialization is like the opposite of serialization. So from JSON object or whichever format you have to Python object. Yeah. Okay. And then the create method defines how the instance is going to be created. The update method is going to also say how the object is going to be modified when a save method is called. So when you call, so we're going to assign a serializer to this serializer here, passing some data to be serialized. So that data is going to have a serializer.save method, which you can use to either create an object or update it. So if you are passing the instance, what differentiates it is that in the create object, you're just passing validated data, but in this update, you're going to be passing in an instance that is going to be modified. So when this serializer.save method is called, either of these is going to be run. Okay, so this is like if you notice, what we have here is very similar to what we have in these models. So we can also use something called model serializers, but then let's use this one first. We'll use model serializers later on, but like this is the general way of doing stuff like this. Creating serializers, I mean. Okay, so let me see. Next thing. Okay, since we've created our serializer now, let's just do something. Let's do some tests inside of our shell. So let's do Python manage.py. And then I'm going to import the serializer I created. Just from blog models, import post. Then we're going to create a post. Let's just create a post. Space. Okay. Title music button. Content. And then we'll just leave it like this. Okay. Let's see. Okay. All right. So, okay. So what we're going to do now, we're not going to import our serializers. So let's just do from blog.serializers. Import post serializer. Okay, there's an error. Max identical. Sorry guys, my internet went off for a while. Okay. So our serializer is showing some errors. Okay, let me remove this allow blank first. For like how long was I gone? I hope I was not gone too long. Okay. All right. Let's see again. Okay, our serializer is fine now. All right. So we've imported our serializer. So we're going to we're going to test how to serialize data from here, so you can just know what it's like. Okay, so post serializer. Let me see what is serializer. Okay, so what we want to pass into our serializer is we want to pass in a post. So first, let's get our post. We just said post is this last one we created, this last post we created. So we're going to pass in serializer to post serializer. Then we're going to look at serializer.data. Okay, so you can see that it has turned this thing into a Python, something similar to a Python data type. And then if you want to now like transform this into a JSON object, you need to use a JSON renderer. So REST framework has a JSON renderer. You just import it from REST framework renderers. So from REST framework, okay, framework renderers import JSON renderer. Maybe I spelled it wrong. From REST framework, not from the REST framework, like this. Okay. So now we're going to render this serialized data. So let's just say data is equal to serializer.data Then we're going to say, assume it's the response we are sending back to the user. We'll say response is equal to JSON render dot render data. So when we print our response, you see that it has been formatted to a JSON type like this. Okay, so what this does is like basically what I've been saying about serialization. So if you want to now, let's say you are receiving this kind of object from JSON object from your user, and then you want to turn it back into a Python object, like a post object that we've been using all this while. You are going to use a parser. So what will I say? Let's convert this back to this kind of type, like a normal Python type, before we'll now convert it back to a post object or a Python complex object. So we're going to import IO, and then we're going to say pass our response into this, and then we're going to parse. Let's import JSON parser. We'll import JSON parser from REST framework. Okay, I think I'm spelling it wrongly. From REST framework.parsers. Okay, so now we're going to pass the data we just got. So say data is equal to some parser, okay, dot parse. What did I call it? String. Okay, so now if you look at data now, it's no longer of this form. It's now of a Python object form. So we're going to now deserialize this. Okay. Okay, so we'll say serializer is equal to post serializer. Then we'll pass in our data. So I said that if you serialize your data and the data is valid, it will return a validated data object. So let's see if our serializer is valid first. With this serializer.isValid method. Serializer is not valid. Okay. Let me see if I make this null called true. It's saying false. Okay, I think we need to update our serializer, because if your serializer is not valid, then you cannot access the validated data, and you cannot do any kind of you cannot perform any kind of operation on it. Okay, so what we can do is let me remove this. And then I think it's likely because of this non-type here. So what we can do is for the sake of testing, we can say post is equal to Print post. So I want to publish post so that it can have a published date. Okay, so we're going to like go back again and transform it into, let me just make this a bit larger. Okay, I'm going to convert it into a JSON and then try to validate our data again. Okay, so let me just do it again because this is looking confusing. Too much data. So I'm going to say serializer is equal to post serializer no pass post if that's data. And then we're going to say response is equal to just a JSON render. Okay. The render that's data. What's going on? When Mendy, why don't you want to learn DRF again?
No, I mean, I just cruise over. Oh, this thing doesn't look as if it's something you can just look at a glance and get. Anyways,
Okay, this is not going to be, it's not going to be like this because this is just inside of the shell. Later on, you're going to organize your code into different files, and then it will be easy for you to, I mean, we've done serialization before with Django's serializer. So it's
yeah.
not going to be, yeah. The only thing is that this time around, you are the one that is going to be specifying, like you'll be using DRF serializer, and then you'll be specifying the attributes you want to serialize. It's all
Okay. No
because it's
problem.
like almost like yourself.
All right.
And you're not going to be doing all this. You're not be doing all of this. So okay. So I'll say data is equal to string. Okay, so let's try again if our serializer. This data. Okay, so it's what this thing just does is to check if like the data you are passing meets all of these requirements. So okay, yeah, so that's that. And then now we can now see if it is valid. You see your data inside the validated data, serializer.validated data. Okay, now you can see your data here. Okay, so like this is basically what happens when you are doing serialization. So now in this place now, we are passing just one post object. But there are times when you want to send in, you want to serialize more than one object. So then you have to now, instead of just passing serializer dot serialize it, serializer is equal to post serializer dot like this. Instead of saying just data equal data, if you're going to be passing in more than one object, you use this argument many equal true. That's when it's a query set. You see it and you see how to use it, Sha. while we're working. Okay, so now inside of here, like we've seen how serializers work generally, but like I said, serializers are just like that's Django REST framework serializers are just similar to Django forms. So they also have something called model serializers, like I said, and then so model serializers are just are basically serializers that allow you to they allow you to deduce your serializer from the model itself, and then it creates this default create an update. It has this create an update method automatically, so you don't need to define your create an update method, except of course there's something else you want to there's some other things you want to do inside of your update, but then you don't need to define that if it's just like basic stuff you're doing. So you say class. First, it's model serializer. So you define your meta class. And then you specify the model. In our case, post model. Then you can also specify the fields you want to be serialized. So I think we'll just have all of them, the same fields we had. So text, created it, published it. So this is just what you need to do if you are going to be using published it like this. If you are going to be using model serializers, these are like the basic stuff you need to define. So let's import our serializers again and see. So from .serializers import serializer. So what let me see from block.serializers. There's no serializers there. Okay. From block.serializers import post serializer. So what Django REST framework gives you is this REPR function that allows you to see what your serializers, like it helps you to see the representation of your serializers from this, from like, I mean, you are using you're getting your serializer from your model. So it's going to help you see what your serializers look like if you were going to be typing it yourself. So let me just say serializer is equal to post serializer. Then we're going to print out the representation of the serializer. Okay, so let me just serializer equal post serializer. We want to print out the representation. So this is what your serializer looks like. Like this is what is created, or this is what it looks like generally. Okay. So there's nothing special about model serializers. They only just automatically determine the fields that are going to be serialized, and then they add the default implementations for the create and update method. Okay. So let's write our view now. Now that we have our serializer in place, just close this one. Write our view. Okay. So maybe we should just clear all of this up. Just going to cut it and put it somewhere else. Just leave it here. Okay, so we're going to import our We're going to import our model, we import our serializer, then we import JSON parser. We also import HTTP response and JSON response. So let's start with from Django .http import HTTP response and JSON response. We're going to import our serializer. We're going to import our model. Okay, then we're going to import serializer, the parser. Import that REST framework parser. Okay, and then we're going to be having, like when we're using Django forms, Django usually sends a token that is going to be like verified. So that's the CSRF token. You have to distinguish valid requests from invalid ones. So we don't have that yet. So we're going to just use, let me put this one here like this. So we're going to import a method, a decorator that is going to allow, or is going to like allow us to use our post method without even passing in a CSRF token. So just say from Django views the decorators CSRF import CSRF exempt as a decorator function. Okay, so now we're going to just create a normal function view. Say def post request. We're going to decorate this our function with the CSRF exempt to be used for post methods. So request that method is equal to get. We're going to say post is equal to post the object the all. Then we are going to now serialize our post into a JSON format. So we'll say serializer is equal to post serializer. We're going to pass in our post. And remember I said if you are going to be serializing more than one post object or query object, you need to pass in this argument many equal true. So true. So we're going to say return JSON response. The data from like when you serialize your data, the data is going to be stored inside the serializer.data attribute. And then it's likely going to be passing, you're going to be returning the list. So you need to say safe equal false because it's not going to be a dictionary object. So let's test this. Oh, there's something I'm missing. Inside of our URLs, we can't import all of these anymore. So we need to import posts. And then let's just remove this and say I'm passing post like this. So let's test this in, where should we test this? Let's test this in our browser. Give me a second, let me share. Okay, so localhost. We've not run our server. So let me just go back and make sure that I run the server. Python manage.py. Okay, so when we go to /blog, field name text is not valid for model posts. Okay, I think we need to go back again inside of our code. It says field name text is not valid for model posts. So maybe inside of our models, we do not have a text attribute. So I'll go back and change it to content. And then we'll try again. Okay, so now you see that we get a list of all of the post objects. Yeah, so this is what we want. But then let's go back to this. So now we are getting properly serialized objects. Now we want to also add a post. We want to add a function. Let me not say a function because this is function based view already. So I'll just say let's add another conditional to handle post method. So if you say request the method equal to post, so what we'll do now is we'll first convert the data into we'll first convert the JSON data into a native Python object so that it can now be serialized. So we'll just say data is equal to JSON parser parse. I'm going to send in the request object, and then we'll say serializer is equal to post serializer. We'll pass this as the data. Data is equal to data. So we said that it has to check if the data is valid first before it will now do any other thing with the validated data. So we'll say if serializer.is valid, we should save. So I told you guys that I already told you that this model serializer implements the update and save. So if we call the dance an extra data, it's going to create that. It's going to create a post object for you. But then if you pass in an instance and then you add extra data that you want to modify, then it's going to update the method. So those are like default methods that are attached to that. And then we want to return the data to the front end. And we want to say the response serializer data. And then you can give it the status of created. So, no for matter. All right. Else, if the serializer is not valid, we can return JSON response and send in the error that is in serializer.errors, and then you can give it a status of 400 of bad request. Okay, so we can't do it. We cannot test posts inside of our what do you call it? Okay, sorry, you can't test posts inside of our browser. It's just going to do get. So we're going to test somewhere else. I'm going to test inside post one. Okay, so we'll do post, and then let me go back and see the data I want to. In fact, I'm doing the wrong thing. Let me just copy data from here. Just copy this kind of data, then put it inside of here. We'll not give it an ID because we are trying to create. Yes. Okay, and then we're going to remove this and test our data. Okay, so we have a server error. Yes, that's post one. So it's saying expecting name enclosed in double quotes. Okay, maybe I did not properly format the JSON. So let me go back. Remove this. Okay, so you see that it creates the object for us nicely. And then if we just like do a get request to /blog, it will send us all of the newly created, all of the data, like my newly created data is here. So this works. So Mendy, I'm sure you can see that it's not like as tough as you thought it was. Just create your serializers, send your data to it, and yeah, let me see what she said. He's laughing. All right, so just create a serializer, then send your data to it. If the data is valid, you can save it, which means you can either create or update your data. Okay, so did I do something with it? Okay. All right. So yeah, this is this. So then you can also like add this. There are also like several there are other what do I say? There are other methods you can use. You can create. I think this is too much. Let me just collect this one. So if you can do a delete method, and the only thing we want to just so let me leave this first. Because if we want to delete, we're going to be deleting like one, so that will not make sense. Instead, we can create a different view, a separate function view for the detail like we've always been doing. So let's do that. We'll just still CSRF exams, and we'll just call it post detail like this. So we're going to have like we're going to have something similar to what we have here. But let me not copy and paste. So let's start first. So when you want to get the detail of a post, you are likely going to, the way we've been doing it before, you get the ID of that post, and then you fetch that post, then you can now do whatever you want to do with it. Okay, your meet here. Welcome. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, what's this? Okay. So what we're going to do now is which place views up by. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to also use get method. So I've not added the ID. I'll just call it PK because later on we're going to use generic classes, and this is the same. This is the ID. This is the argument we're going to be passing. So we're just going to do get method. We'll just say if request the method is equal to get. And what we'll just do is we'll say I'll not say I'll just say post is equal to post the objects dot get pk is equal to pk. So because that object might not be there, we'll just use a try to do try post to, okay, let me just say try post is what to post the objects or get, and then if you get the post, we'll now send it to the serializer. We'll just say post serializer, and then we'll send in the post. So if we get it, we'll just return JSON response. And then we pass in serializer.data like we did before, and the status 200 like this. But if there is no data, we'll say except post or objects. Post does not exist. So then we want to return HTTP response. Did we import HTTP response before? We return HTTP response and just passing a not found status. Okay, so let's see how this works. Oh, sorry about that. Yummy. Okay, so let's share our Postman again. Oh, before I share Postman, I'm always in a hurry to test before adding the URLs. So we're going to import, what's this? Just not this one. We're going to import post detail. And then we're going to add the path here. And just add like this. Name is equal to detail. Pass and post detail. Okay, so let's try. We already have IDs here, so let's do 18 and send. So this fetches the data. So it means it works. It should work for every other detail. So now here, like I said, I wanted to add delete, but then this is the appropriate place to add delete. So we're going to say, if you guys a method called delete, we'll get the ID, we'll get the post with that ID, and then we would say post dot delete. That's my code. Okay, and then we'll turn response no content, I guess. So the post does not, if the post does not exist, we'll turn a 404 error. So let's go back to our Postman and test. This is 18. So let's delete 18. Huh? I see saying 200. Let me go back again. Oh. Let me do all of them first and see. Slash blog. Okay. There's an error somewhere. Blog visitor post did not return an HTTP response. You should turn on instead. Let's get blogs first. What's wrong? Okay, so I think I'm doing something. I don't know if I'm doing something, but let me see. So here I have return JSON response serializer.data. I just want to return a HTTP response that says this with the status 204. So I don't know if that could be the error, but let me try again. Let me do slash blog slash post. Page not found. So I get. Okay, I think I'm the one doing something wrong. It's supposed to just be slash blog. Okay, so let's try to delete the one with an ID of 18. Okay, so you get this error, so for no content. So yeah, I mean the state was not error. Okay, so when we try to get blog again, what's this now? We'll change it to get. And then we'll see that our post with ID of 18 is no longer here. So let's just go back to our views.py. So basically we can add any let me move this from my view. So we can add any method we want to add and then add the functionality. So let's try for updating. Let's say we want to update. But then we've done so many repetitions. I'll not say so many, but we are always in this try except everywhere. So we can just have it and just put it, create an object. So you get posts. And then we'll just do the try except. What's that? Let's try except here. So instead of doing try except in all of these places, we'll just say post is equal to get object self dot get post, and then we'll pass in the pk. Okay, same with this one. Just copy this and paste it here. Like this. Okay. So let's try to modify. We'll use the put method. First the method equal to. So what we are going to do now is here we are receiving data from the user. So we'll just pass it first and then pass it to the serializer like this. And then we'll pass it to that serializer. Just say serializer is equal to Mendy.
Yeah, you used self in a function block. Yeah.
Oh. I thought it was a class. Sorry. Oh God. I thought it was a class. So it will not have worked, and then I would have been wondering why it did not work. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to do request the method you call put, yeah. Then we're going to pass it into that. Okay. Close you. So serializer is equal to post serializer, and to say data is equal to data. We're passing the request, and okay, so I told you guys that when we are if we are passing, if we are trying to update or create, let's go back to what we have here. Okay, so now, unlike here where we are just trying to like create from scratch, we are trying to update a post. So we need to pass in that post. We need to pass in that post. So first, let's get the post. This is put. Okay. So we'll say post is equal to get post pk, and then we'll pass in that post to our serializer. Just with the data we want to update. So then if serializer is valid, if serializer dot is valid, then we'll save it. So it's serializer dot save. So this serializer dot not save. This serializer dot save is going to do a modification, and then we want to return the modified data. So we can't just return it like that. Let's use JSON response. Like this. Okay. So if not, we can just return that request. And then we can test. Okay, let's test. Now postman. It's postman again. Okay, there you are. So we'll do put. So this, let's say we want to update author, and she's not married. She's not Robert. So Robert. Let's do this. Okay, so we'll have to pass in, like we deleted her already. Okay, so wrong. We have to, let's use this one, this post with ID of 17. It's a slash, and then let's update her to Susan Whitefoot. This. Let's test. Okay, so you see that her data gets updated. So basically that's how to work with serializers in what do you call them? Function views. But then we can still convert our views to what they call them, to class views, and yeah, that'll work fine too. Okay, so before we go on, let's talk about REST frameworks, requests and responses. So in our regular HTTP response that we have from Django, we just have we have request.post to handle just request.post to handle just form data, and it will only work for post method. But then REST framework has this data. It has this data attributes that handles from, let me just say, post, put, and patch. So all of those data that has to do with creating and modifying, all of those methods that have to do with creating and modifying data, because the data handles that. And then, here we have just statuses with numbers. But then if someone else is reading your code and does not know what this 201 status code means, or 400, or the person does not know. So with REST framework, they have statuses that are more explanatory, like 201 for created, 400 for bad request. So it's very explicit. Just let me show you what it looks like. It's like this. Status. So when you import this status from REST framework, you just go like status 200 underscore created, and this is more explanatory, or 201 created, or 200, something like that. So it's 201 created, sorry. So something like that, which is more explanatory. And then it also helps. So with the way they handle their responses, if they are setting requests, if there are certain requests that maybe you have, let me say you sent a JSON object that is not properly formatted, all those kind of little issues or errors, REST framework has a way of helping you to handle them. So, but then you need to wrap it with a, let me say, a decorator, or you have to, if you are using a function view, you have to wrap it with a decorator called API view. Or if you are using a class, you have to inherit from REST framework's API view. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. For the status, we'll say, and put it together. So from status, we'll say, from REST framework status import status. So that's how you'll be able to use all those explanatory status codes from REST framework. From REST framework. From REST framework import status. Okay. From REST framework import status instead. So let's say in our, which one should we use now? Let's say inside of this one, we've not imported our API view. Okay, so we can now let's decorate this method with API view, and then we can pass in the list of methods we allow for a particular view, like get. So any other method is not going to be allowed here. Let me see. Can now update our status to say status dot 201 underscore created. Right. Yes. And I'll say status. That's 400 underscore bad requests. This is like more explanatory compared to just 201 or 400. And also do the same thing for this our post detail. Passing the methods we allow. Get post, put, and maybe delete and delete, because that's what we implemented. Let me type in CV. Okay. So then we can also update all of this. You can say status dot 44 not found. Okay. And just basically that, in fact. So like this is exactly what it is like. So in your own time you can update all of that. Okay. So I think I mean it's still going to be like very likely the same result you are getting. So now we're going to be looking at how to like create class-based views. We're going to be creating class-based views here. So we can remove all of these ones. Let's just, from views, we're going to import API view. So let's just say from REST framework dot views, we're going to import API view. So it is from this API view, we are going to now inherit. So let's just call this post. And then we're going to be inheriting from API view. So this API view is still the same thing as when you're using at API view decorator with your function views. Okay, and then we know how class-based views work. So let's just have, I'm just going to copy this one. I'm just going to call it def get passing self request as well. Sorry, I'll copy this post too. Just like that. So then we can also have the same thing for our detail view. So just call it class detail view. Sorry, I said detail view, class post view. Post view. I'm going to inherit from API view. This is going to be for the def get method. Then this is going to be def post. Okay. Then I can just close this one up. like this. Then I'm going to add this one for delete. Same thing. And same for put. Okay. Just like that. Okay, so for our, we don't have our get post method anymore. So we need to copy that. Still need it here. So instead of just calling post like that, post is post view. Okay, post detail view. Detail. Okay. And why does this send? I think I made a mistake here. Should be this. And then instead of get post, we'll do self dot get post. Update it everywhere. Okay. Okay. So it should be status.http http_. Yeah, so you guys should please take note of that. There's an http before the before the status. Sorry, before the number. Okay, let me just leave this like this. Cannot import name posts from blog.view. Okay, so we're going to update this inside of our URLs. So it should be post. That was post. I'll go back to my view. Okay, post. And then post detail. Just call it post view. So they can have the same pattern. Okay. Post. Post view. Then we'll put it here as view. As view. Post detail view dot as view. Okay. Yeah, let me just test if it works. So detail invalid username / password. Why? Okay, I'm not going to be using any auth, so no auth. Put is not allowed. Get unexpected keyword argument PK. Oh, I did not add. It. Okay. Put. I think I just copied and pasted some things twice. Let me check. I think I made a mistake. Get, put, delete. So this post is not necessary. I don't know where I even copied this one from. Okay. Yeah, so this should be fine. Still on error. Get post takes 1. Okay, self. Right. So this is way better. I want to print out this post so I can see if the data is actually coming out. None. Try 19. I just want to be sure that this thing works before we move on. Okay, so I made a mistake here. I should return this value here because I'm not returning it to either of these, to any of these methods. That's why it's giving me a non-value. Okay. Yeah, so this works now. All right. So this is like how to transform your views, your function views into class views. I'm sure you guys already know this before, but then we're going to like still look at how to, because we still have plenty code. We are writing a lot of code, and REST framework has a way of like making life very, very easy for you guys, for us in general. I'll clear this one. Okay. So they have generic views, they have mixins and all of that. So, but then let's look at how to make our code very, 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 very easy. So because like all of these things, all of these get, post, delete, they're all general, they're general HTTP methods that people use all the time. So instead of writing again and again and again, we can just make it, like, make our code very, very simple. So what we'll do here is we're going to import mixins. We're going to import mixins from REST framework. And then we're also going to import generics. So later you see, let's start from mixins. Okay. So we're going to just call this, post view like we called it before, but then it's not going to just inherit from API view. It's going to inherit from list mode mixin. So mixins dot list mode mixin. It's also going to inherit from create mode mixin or create model mixin. I'll call it miskin because create model mixin. And then we're also going to inherit from our generic API. So we'll just say generics. I don't think I imported generics. So let's import generics from REST framework. Import generics. So where are we? generics dot generic API view. You can just import it directly, but like to make your code a bit have a format here. Okay. So what you just do is you just define similar to what we do in Python generic views. You can just what you just do is let me push this one down. You just define your query sets. Query sets. Equal to say pose objects and then you say your serializer class, which is our post serializer, like this. So when you call get, we just want to pass in queries and all of the arguments that were sent, and then Django is going to like know what data and handle that for you. So you just I'll explain this self.list. What self.list does. It's a method that that the list model, let's say this model mixing provides to list all of your data, like to list all of your posts. Okay, self.list, and then we'll pass in all of these requests, arguments, and keyword arguments. So star. But then instead of post, instead of self.list, we're going to be using the create model mixing, the create method from the create model mixing. So let's clear this. Self.create. And then you pass all of those data. So you now like receive all of the data, like when you send the get request, you get a list of all of the posts, and then when you try to create, you already have the serializer class defined. You have it's going to like serialize the data and then create the post for you. Okay. Same thing with post and all of them. So they have for like if you want to get a single data, you use retrieve model mixing. If you want to update a single post or a single object, you use update model mixing. If you want to delete, you use destroy model mixing. So that's that. So we can use all those retrieve update. Let me just say mixing dot retrieve for one data, retrieve model mixing for one object, I mean. Mixing dot destroy model mixing dot update model mixing. Okay, and then next thing you just do is you just define your where is it? You don't have to do all of this, just define your query sets, objects, and then serializer class. So the same thing we do here is what we'll just do here. But then it's going to be self.retrieve. delete, self.destroy. For put, we'll use updates, because that's what is defined there. So we self.update like this. This makes it very, very simpler. This makes it very simple. You can, what is this? Return self.create. Okay, two return statements. Post the objects, not all. Query set equal post the object, that's one. Create model mixing is not defined. So mixins out. Create model mixing. Framework generics has no generics. It's supposed to be generic API view. Okay. Updates model mixing. Capital M. Okay. So then we'll have to update this. Post detail view has no as view. Has no attributes as view. Okay. Why? That's the error. Okay, let me see if it's just for you. If I call it positive view. Okay, I didn't add the generics. I didn't add the generic API view. Okay. If you get that error after adding generic API view. Okay. So I think that's sorted out. Well, I'm just going to test. So if you get a response from here, it means it's working. Okay. So yeah, there's a response here, so it's working. Okay, but then we can still like make this very, very simple as. Can still make this very simple. Let's get rid of the mixins and just use generic. Okay. And just use generic. So this is the last thing we're going to be doing today. Because we're almost out of time. Generics API view. So these generics has like views for creating so let me just do this. So we're going to use, instead of just the generic API view, for this our post view, we need to list and create. So we can use the list create API view. view. And then for this one that we need to like get, update, put, delete, we can do retrieve, sorry, updates and destroy API view. So what you just need to specify, since you've already specified what kind of views you want, you don't need to do all of this again. You can just remove these methods, and just define your query set and your serializer class. And then this like works fine too. It's like very concise, so you don't need to write so much code. Like this just works out. Okay, so our time is up for today. Tomorrow we'll just continue with authentication, how to authenticate your views, and how to authenticate your views. We'll update our model class, we'll update our model, and think of how to create custom permissions as well. All right, guys. Do you have questions before we go?
Yeah, what was last you said? You said think of how to create what?
Custom permissions.
Okay. All right, that's fine. Thanks for today's class. No more questions from me.
Okay, guys. Yomi, do you have a question?
No, I don't get most of the stuff, so once I watch the video later.
Yeah, you don't join the time, so you have to like practice again from start. All right, guys. Thank you for joining.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. Bye. I don't know if I think I can end the call. Stop recording.